So I was playing poker to pay for college. I tried doing the startup thing. It was almost a bit of a relief when it finally ended, and then eventually quit and started Epic. At the time, Epic Gardening was a small little blog making, back then, maybe like $200-300 a month. And I honestly would have taken doing my own thing and making less and being maybe slightly less successful simply because I want to do what I want to do. To be honest, the commerce was the exploder for the business. We sold about 20 grand in 90 seconds every time we released them.
Imagine starting a side hustle for $100 and then in a matter of years having it earn you more than $7 million in a single year.
Well, that is exactly what happened to me. So come along as I show you how I built a business that grosses over $7 million a year.
All right, Kevin, what you've achieved is incredible. You're one of top 5 gardening blogs in probably what, the whole world?
Yeah, at this point.
Yeah, before we get to that though, tell us a little bit about your background, how you essentially got into Epic Gardening.
Yeah, it was a weird story. Didn't grow up as a gardener.
We love weird stories.
Grew up as a normal suburban kid, really into science, and kind of got into video games after college, where I played online poker to pay for school. Quit poker, didn't have something good to replace it with, so played video games. Got addicted to them, and then the garden was like a reset. It was like a way to bring me back outside into the real world.
Cool. Okay.
With my brother, got hooked on that, and then started the blog, which now, of course, is a really well-trafficked blog, like you mentioned, but the YouTube channel, then the podcast, the books, and the products, and the reason why we're here today.
Don't share too much.
Yeah, sorry.
We've got a lot more coming. Yeah, no, we've got a lot of cool questions for you guys, but that's pretty cool. So your brother is an inspiration, or he was the one that dragged you out of the house?
Yeah, well, I said, you want to go surfing, you want to go skateboarding, you want to go gardening. The way I remember the story is he was like, oh, gardening, like that sounds fun. And I was like, why would he have picked that one out of all the 3? You know, like we're Southern California kids, like why not surf or something? So we headed to the nursery, got some basil, got some cucumbers. So that's kind of where my origin story is.
No prior experience before, none whatsoever.
I don't think I'd ever grown anything before that point.
That is wild, dude. Well, I'm excited because we're going to share with you guys the revenue of what you do, right? A lot of people love hearing those numbers, the potential, and so stay tuned, keep watching, because Kevin's going to lift that curtain for you guys. Dude, you got the best looking chickens I've ever seen.
They're honestly like attractive hens, aren't they?
They are.
Yeah.
So how did you start Epic Gardening? Was it $100? Break down the cost for us.
Dude, the beauty of a blog is it is less than that, actually. I mean, at the time, I think a $10 domain name, because I didn't buy it, I just registered it, and then like $5 a month to host, something like that.
And then you got to create the content.
Yeah, but that's just your time, and your time's not worth anything when you're not making any money, right? So it was just. I mean, it's probably $50, if that. And then obviously as things scale, you make some money, you reinvest it, and it gets a little more complex from there.
All right, pretty simple.
Yeah.
So you started this as part-time blogging, you got the gardening going on. At which point did you decide to take it full-time? And to add to that, entrepreneurs who are watching now are in the same situation where it's a side hustle.
Yeah.
But they're not ready to commit. So how does that happen?
For me, I'll say my risk tolerance on it was probably a little dialed up compared to most people, because when I quit Scribe Media, I was probably making $300, $400 a month from the blog. So certainly not enough to live off of, but I had savings saved up from my poker days and from working. So I knew, hey, if I don't make this at least generate enough to live off of in a few months, I can revisit and I can kind of go back and maybe get a job or something like that. But I knew I probably wasn't going to, because I had a very high confidence that it would work. And I honestly would have taken doing my own thing and making less and being maybe slightly less successful simply because I want to do what I want to do, you know? And so if you're built that way, I feel like you know it. If you ask yourself that question, you probably know you're sort of built that way. If you're really on the fence, should I do this, should I not? You might be thinking you want it for a reason that you don't truly believe in yet, and you might have to investigate a little deeper in yourself.
Interesting. I feel like real entrepreneurs do have that idea, like you said, you know you want it, but we spend more time talking ourselves out of actually taking the next step. But then it's like, well, it's gonna have to happen.
There is that whole sort of dilemma of like, if you have to debate it this hard, maybe it's not for you, right? And then the counter of that is like, I actually was that person at one point in time, and it is for me, and maybe something switched in my brain and I learned enough to kind of have the faith to commit to it, right? So it's tough. I mean, it's an individual thing, but I mean, risk tolerance, backup plan, savings,
resources,
like, all that kind of stuff you got to consider.
Yep. So you came out of college determined to be an entrepreneur. How did that go for you? Did you get a job right out of college? Tell us about that.
It went pretty bad, to be honest with you.
So
I was playing online poker to pay for college, and then afterwards a little bit, till I decided to quit and tried to build some websites, which had a little bit of success. You know, you land a project here or there, you do the project, what's next, right? You're sort of scraping for the next project.
Figuring things out.
Yeah, and I tried doing the startup thing. So a friend and I raised a little bit of money, and we tried to build a online relationship personal assistant app So if
Wow.
you're dating someone, you could say, hey, here's who I'm dating. This is what the music she likes. This is, the hobbies that she likes. Here's our special days. And it would recommend concerts to go to or gifts to get or date ideas. And again, didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't have a good economic model for the business, etc. And then worked at this company called Scribe Media, which humbled me. I learned that I actually had a lot to learn about growing the business, learned a lot there, and then eventually quit and started Epic.
Are there any actually benefits to having an actual job? What did you learn through those couple months or years?
Given that I wanted to go into the job to learn how to grow a business, is that I got that education.
Right, for free. And well, you got paid
for it, right?
Yeah,
and so, that's the way I approached the job, just because I knew I never wanted to do that for a long period of time. But at the same time, hey, it was kind of nice to have the stress off for a period of time from trying to grind. Because at the time, Epic Gardening was a small little blog making, back then, maybe like $200-300 a month.
That was my question. So what was the revenue like before the e-commerce stuff?
I'll give it the exact breakdown. So 2016 was the first year I did it full time, but only for half the year because I quit Scribe Media, and it did about 17 grand. So not a lot to speak for. I was putting time in too to get to the 17. Next year was 75. Next year was 225, and then the next year after that, which was 2019, was 550.
Wow.
And the 550 was half e-com. So that's the first year that commerce came in. And when you get to 2020, it was 2.8, and 2021 was 7.3.
Wow.
So you can tell there's a little pandemic bump, but also just, to be honest, the commerce was the exploder for the business.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
What made you expand from just blogging to YouTube and podcast and so forth? Walk us through the mindset and why you felt that was the right move.
I think it was mostly like a preservation move, making sure that I wasn't hyper concentrated on one thing. Because, if you're a blogger and you're watching, you know that if your traffic goes down or if your Amazon commissions change or whatever, you're sort of done. And so I wanted to explore different media types, but I also said, look, I want to come to gardeners wherever they're at. So if they want to watch me, they can watch me. If they want to listen, we'll start the podcast. If they want a different creator, we'll bring someone else with a fresher perspective or different approach. And so it's just kind of expanding to all media types and knowing that in a sort of aggregated effect would boost like all ships, like rising tide lifts all boats.
I watched some of your videos. You do an incredible job, I think. I just think your mission, as I mentioned earlier, is really simple, but really profound and really cool. Teach people how to grow their own food. As we're surrounded by garlic and onions, and what else is here, Kevin?
A little homegrown, We've got some garlic, some onions, some more garlic, some shallots.
There's a great aroma, actually, to it all.
Nice.
I'm a garlic fan.
Yeah.
Let's do the blitz.
Thanks,
guys, for submitting your questions. We'll fly into it. Terminator's asking, how did you market your blog? Everyone wants to start a blog or a newsletter, but no one I've found can give a detailed explanation of how they got their first viewers.
First viewers, I'll give you one. I started a subreddit called R Hydro for hydroponics. It's a method of growing plants without soil, and that's what I was writing about at the time. So I went to a community that had traffic and created a community there that linked to my blog.
Matthew Brady's asking if you are interested in any other business ventures or how else do you plan to diversify your Epic brand?
Within Epic, there's a lot of ways, right? We can start sub-brands, like I have an Epic homesteading channel that's more about homesteading, chickens, canning, preserving, getting into other verticals like houseplants or bonsai or something like that. Outside of Epic, I have a real estate company, and that's pretty much it.
Just real estate agents there, or what's the deal?
No, it's just owning and investing in real estate,
Sweet. Matt wants to know, will you do collabs with other garden YouTubers?
Yeah, we actually, if you'll check our channel out, and probably link in the description or something, you can see we just did one with about 5.
Check it out.
Other gardeners,
Pow is asking, given a chance, what is the one thing about businesses in general that you like to change fundamentally?
I think the thing that sort of annoys me, I guess, is that it has to all be about pure profit maximization. It can't be about anything else. And that's more, with public companies, that's more common, obviously. But even with private companies, I feel like there can be other reasons you do something.
The trend is there. Yeah. All right. Alexander's asking, you've been doing a lot of interviews. Have they helped you with growing your following? Have you noticed a notable boost in revenue with each of the interviews you've done and so on?
Honestly, I think the reason I like doing these is because after 7 years of gardening, it's fun to talk about something else sometimes, and it's almost like a little treat.
Gotcha.
I haven't noticed that it's helped Epic in any way that I can quantify.
That's not the primary purpose.
Yeah, it's mostly just I want more people to be able to do stuff like this.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Last one. Trav wants to know, if you could have anyone in this world endorse your business, who would it be and why?
That's a good question. Maybe Oprah.
Maybe
Oprah, because she's probably the most famous person who actively loves gardening. Yeah.
Oprah, please reach out to Kevin.
Oprah.
Endorse.
Let's go.
Yes, you can do it. So you recently negotiated a funding for the business via an investment group.
Yeah.
What can you share with us on that? I mean, I'm asking that question. Are you an expert in that? What did you learn? How does that happen?
No. I mean, I think somehow investors have this magical sense for when a company does well. They somehow know, and then you start getting the emails, and you delete most of the emails, and this one particular email just sort of stuck out. They had a great portfolio of companies I respected, I thought were great examples of like what I would try to build, and they were very persistent. I mean, I told them no multiple times after emails, after calls, flew out and met them, told them no at some point in time, and eventually we cooked up a deal that made sense and kept the soul of the brand. It wasn't something where, hey, we're going to come in, we want to make all these crazy changes and like sort of destroy the vision of the company. They sort of wanted to support that. And so as far as like tips to get investment, the only thing I have is build a company in a way where investors want to reach out to you, because I wasn't hunting for it.
It's like honey and bees, right?
Yeah.
If you have that, they'll come towards you.
Yeah.
Do you ever wonder how top investors consistently beat out the stock market? It's easy. They get in on the opportunities before the companies go public. And oftentimes investors like you and I, we get left out of these lucrative opportunities. Well, today, that is all changing. Start Engine, led by Howard Marks, the previous co-founder of Activision, which was later acquired by Microsoft for $67 billion, well, now they're democratizing investing. With Start Engine, you can invest alongside 1.7 million users, potentially investing in the next Airbnb or Uber for as little as $100. Now here is the best part. Not only are you invited to invest in startups, but as an UpFlip viewer, you are also able to join Start Engine's live fundraising round. This gives you the opportunity to own a share of this revolutionary platform for as little as $500. With $1.2 billion raised and $71 million for themselves, Start Engine is reshaping what is possible in startup investing. So click the link in the description so that you can jump on board before their investment round wraps up. So when you started scaling YouTube and podcasts, right, you were reading your own articles on camera as the content.
It was pretty cringe. It was pretty bad.
Good luck in the garden. Peace.
Yeah, because I was a blogger, right?
Were you a perfectionist too, or?
Clearly not. Clearly not. Because there's a video, you can still see it if you go look, that I read about plant nutrients. Plants have 16 nutrients they need to live. I wrote an article about it. I recorded a screencast of me reading the article.
Copper, magnesium. Oops, I have that twice.
It was terrible. I leave it up as like an homage to how bad I used to be at this whole game. Podcasts too. I mean, I think I just recorded into a phone and just published it onto the feed back in the day. But you got to keep in mind, this was like 2016, 2017. So it's not like as sophisticated, but I was so silly. I just didn't know what I didn't know. So not a perfectionist, but it got me on the board. It got me playing and got me sort of like doing reps so I could get better.
What did you learn from that though, today, moving forward?
Honestly, kind of bad lessons. What I learned, bad and good lessons at the same time. What I learned is those things worked. So
exactly.
it didn't tell me that they were so bad that you wouldn't watch it, right? So I could have gotten better faster, perhaps if I failed a little bit faster. But at the same time, it also taught me that if the essence of the content is what the viewer wants, they will put up with a lot of, let's say, bad production or bad presentation if it is exactly what they want.
That's what I wanted to get from you, because previous interview, that's what he said. You got to start somewhere. Don't be a perfectionist. Don't worry about the editing. Just
Absolutely
get it out there.
Yeah, because think about it. Like if you have a 100 subscriber channel or a 0 subscriber channel, you're like, well, what will people think? No one's watching. It doesn't matter what they think. No one's watching your stuff at any point in time for the most part.
Sadly true.
Yeah. So practice when no one's watching and get better, and when they come, you'll actually be good.
That's good. So tell me specifically, how many platforms are you creating content on? How many times a week? Because I can imagine that's pretty hectic, can be. So how do you manage stress? How do you make it all work? What do you want to highlight for us?
So for us, we have 4 YouTube channels now. We'll do at least a video a week on each of them. Depends on the season, because we're a highly seasonal business, right? Spring is hot for us, winter's actually not. We've got the podcast, 5 episodes a week. Our blog, probably 120, 150 articles a month.
Wow.
We'll do social content, sort of whatever we feel is seasonal at the time, in short form these days. So that might be 4 or 5 a week or something like that. So it's a lot of content, but we have a great team to help us do it. We have a producer, we have an editing team, we have other creators, which I think is unique to our business. It's not just me, it's Jacques, who's on our team as a creator. He actually started out as my gardening assistant, and we built him a YouTube channel, an Instagram, a TikTok, and he's sort of become like a beloved part of our community. I'm looking for more of those as well to help sort of spread this out, but it is a lot. That's just the content side of the business, right? There's the product side, there's the warehousing, there's the e-com, there's new products that we're trying to develop for our customers, and there's a lot going on.
To tag on that, you have a pretty big team. How many people at this point in time across?
We're about 75 across the seed company in Colorado, as well as our core team here.
Gotcha.
In San Diego, we have a remote team as well.
All right, we got Jacques in the scene here because you guys have been around together in this venture for quite some time. Give us a little understanding of your relationship, your friendship, and then I've got some more questions for you, Jacques, specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when we first started working together, it was kind of helping Kevin in the garden because I think a lot of people don't realize that, you know, they see the front face and it's gardening only, right? But there's a whole business behind it, and it takes a lot of time and effort to really do all that stuff. So I kind of came in, helped out in the garden, and from there we just kind of took it further. It was literally, I started gardening very seriously during the pandemic, and I was looking for content. And that's where I ran into the biggest content channel out there. Specific gardening. And it kind of just started off as like a DM conversation through Instagram.
That's
I kind of messaged him, we were talking about gardening back and forth.
And you were always here when that DM started, right?
The craziest part is that when I moved into this place, because I used to grow in a very small place, I bought this house in the pandemic to expand the garden, expand the content, and then Jacques just happened to live here.
That's the crazy
and he drove by
literally a couple houses away.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. And then, you know, since he was our garden assistant, he's now become a creator with Epic. So he's got a big channel on his own. Pretty much every function in the company at some point Jacques has had a part in.
As you ventured into e-commerce, the raised beds come in. You mentioned they were coming in from Australia. And I earlier said that that's expensive to import products, right? You need a lot of cash on hand, but you almost kind of did it out of zeros. How did that happen?
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, so I had bugged them for a while to let me distribute the product. And
they were exclusively to Australia at that point, sorry.
Yeah, exclusive to Australia. They had one distributor here, but I don't think that person was doing too much with the product, so they weren't really marketing it. They're just kind of carrying it. So I said, hey, I'd rather do it. I'd rather be the guy because I've got an audience and they're asking for it already. They want it.
What's unique about them?
They are far and away the longest lasting raised beds because a lot of people build those out of wood.
Yeah, that's what I did.
So wood will rot on you and wood will have to be rebuilt, and the cheaper metal beds will rust really quickly. So these guys in Australia, they designed something for the Australian climate, which is super harsh.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of rain, a lot of heat, a lot of sun, and so they just last forever. I think they look really cool. And so what I did is I bought a 20-foot container, should have cost about $35,000, did cost $35,000, and I said, I'll pay you half up front, I'll pay you half over 90 days when I get it over here, because I've never done this before, like work with me, you know? And so I paid him 17.5 up front, but as soon as I knew how many I had in that container and I knew it was on a boat to America,
Pre-sale.
I pre-sold it, and obviously you're selling for more than what it costs, and so I had the revenue from that to spend to pay them for the initial bill and the future bill. And then I used actually the gains off of that to buy another container and do the same thing. And that's where it sort of clicked for me. I was like, oh, this is actually the business. It wasn't the content. The content's my way to educate, inspire, teach, and engage. But the business is actually the product.
But you discovered a really great product that you knew your customers would really benefit from.
Yeah.
So building an entire company, building an entire business from a side hustle can be pretty time consuming, I would imagine. How do you manage time with all that stuff? Do you have any tips for us?
Yeah, there's sort of high level tips, right? You kind of have to be able to zoom out and see where is my time highest levered. So back in the early days, take it. I had nothing, so I'll write. And then at some point, you know, I've written my 400th, 500th blog article. Maybe I need to hire help for that because my new problem is traffic. I need to get traffic to the blog. And so it's a constant sort of day by day, week by week, month by month evaluation of what is the best thing to spend your time on. And you have to automate, delegate the rest, or hire help. And so it's just a big game of figuring out what that is every day. That's my only real time management skill.
Right. So it sounds like it's always evolving, always changing. As you get more responsibility, that time management skill becomes something else.
Yeah. I mean, at the highest levels, right, the best use of your time is probably to find someone to do that who's better than you. Hiring. Right.
Yeah, outsource. We got the Shopify order just again, right? It always moves. This is his order count. But there's not enough zeros in there.
It's a little short. It's a little short.
Importing products is very lucrative, but it costs you tens and tens of thousands of dollars that you don't have. But stay tuned, because Kevin is going to share with you guys how he did it for exactly zero. I guess let's segue into where your team is at today across locations. If there are multiple locations, what do you want to highlight?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing with a business where you have like a creator, like myself or Jacques on our team, who's also creating content for us, is a lot of the audience just thinks that's all that there is. But behind the scenes, we have 5-6 people on customer support. We have a warehouse in Colorado for our seed company with people that are picking, packing, testing the seed, designing the packets. There's 75 people on the team, right? So it's like completely a team effort. And just because we're the most visible doesn't mean we're the most important sometimes.
If you guys are enjoying this, we greatly appreciate it if you hit that like, subscribe, and the bell so that you don't miss anything. Let's keep watching. Yeah. Talk together about venturing into the e-commerce world. I mean, whoever wants to take first dibs on it.
I mean, he definitely started it. I came in and started helping out wherever I thought I could, because my background in doing academic research also led to me doing a lot of data analysis. So I kind of helped sort through orders, make sure tracking was going the right way, like on top of shipping pricing, kind of learning business as I went, because it wasn't really my background at all.
How did you play a vital part in the e-commerce, if any, or?
I mean, Jacques did some stuff
general?
that he just, I would call it wizardry, because back in
you
the
need
day,
some of that these days.
Yeah, I mean, we had a facility that I bought down in southern San Diego, just 15 minutes from here, and we were importing product from Australia, our main distributor, our raised beds that we sell, and we were just kind of slinging, running and gunning ourselves. Like I said, we drove up one weekend, got our forklift card, bought a forklift, learned how to use that, and double stack pallets, all the crazy sort of warehouse stuff. But at the same time, the products are heavy, and economically it's expensive to ship them across the country. And so, Jacques was looking at all sorts of different freight rates, comparing them, trying to figure out where we could save a buck.
Not the best use of time for you, essentially.
I just didn't have the time to do it. I had to be making the content or something else, and so Jacques was there, kind of playing backup. And now, he's got a little bit of a starhood of his own on the channel.
It was pretty wild too, because we were like from day up till day down. It was work in the garden, make content, run to the warehouse, ship all the orders out, because it was only me and him doing anything in the warehouse at that point.
You were one of the first people on board, essentially, right?
Yeah. And then I would come back down, we'd shoot a little bit more, and then that would be the end of the day. So it was pretty busy.
What is this thing? This thing looks cool and looks like you took it out of an old historic library.
That's exactly what happened. So this actually came from UCSD, University of California, San Diego, I think 1979, something like that.
Okay.
So these guys are like weirdly hard to find. I'm obsessed with them because this is our seed catalog. So we acquired a seed company, Botanical Interests, and this is every seed that we offer at the entire company, organized into these little shelves. Just a weird thing you would do as a gardener. Like, this is like a gardener's absolute dream, is to have something like this. And so I figured, since we have a seed company, why not have the catalog here?
You sold, more than 500,000 seed starting trays without spending $1 on ads?
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the strength of having a world of content, right? And so for us, we had a really passionate Instagram audience. That was like probably the place I was most connected to the community of gardeners that we have.
All right.
Yeah, and so a friend of mine brought these trays down to me. He said, "What do you think of these trays?" He had invented them. He said, "I think they're the best trays I've ever seen for starting seeds. And we're gardeners, we're very particular about these things. And these are definitely the best trays I've ever seen." So I showed them to Instagram, and they were like, "Oh, I really like those. Where can I get those?" I'm like, "You can't get them anywhere." And so I struck a deal with him.
A little
teaser, a little taste.
Yeah.
And I kept kind of building that up. And eventually, when we kind of had the infrastructure in place to launch them, we launched them. We sold out, I think, every day that we could get enough supply, because we're making them as we're selling them. And so every day we could get enough supply, we sold about 20 grand in 90 seconds every time we released them. Every single time for that whole spring.
How does that sound? 20 grand in 90 seconds.
And that was just off saying, "Hey, they're back." No ads, like you mentioned. Just like, "Hey, they're back." Yeah, exactly.
And everything gets sold out?
Yeah.
That's wild. Talk to us about paid advertising as your business is today. How much are you spending per month? Whatever you can share with us.
We spend a healthy chunk now, but far less than a normal direct-to-consumer company. So most companies probably spend, 20-ish% of their revenue on paid acquisition.
Yeah? Okay.
If you're a D2C, like e-com company, we're at maybe a third of that, and most of the reason why is because we have our content, right? And until 2022, I spent zero ever on any paid advertising. So all those numbers, the 7.3 million in 2021 in product and ads and brands revenue, $0 of that came from running an ad at all. And it was all off the strength of, the blog, the podcast, the YouTube channel. And then eventually, when you try to scale a little bit past that, you're going to want to turn on some level of ads. But we still have an advantage that we don't have to spend as much as other companies.
I mean, it's still a large number. You're talking 30 mil for 23, and if it's 10, 13, 15% of that?
Less, probably.
Less than that, okay.
Yeah.
No.
So the nice thing about that is you get this crazy sort of flywheel effect where you're reaching a lot of accounts organically. You get to retarget those people and advertise to them at a cheaper rate or a slightly more efficient rate. And so the return's pretty good. I mean, our ROAS, if we get into those levels of details, it outperforms a traditional D2C sort of benchmark of 3x, 3.5x. We're higher than that.
You're outperforming that.
Yeah, we're higher than that for sure. Yeah.
Wow, good for you. Looking back with all your experience so far, what would you say your smartest business move was or decision?
Yeah, by far, it was offering product directly to our audience. So, if you think about what a content business is, which is what we were making money off of ads or a brand sponsorship or an affiliate deal or something like that, where your audience really is still your product. You're selling that audience to someone else, right? In the form of advertising or brand deals or whatever. Yeah. So what we decided to do is basically look at the content, see what people were responding to product-wise, and just source, develop, or distribute those products.
So the Epic Gardening Company is heavily reliant, or not reliant, but the product that you have is the garden beds.
Yeah, I mean, the truth of a lot of these businesses you're seeing creators build, like Logan Paul or a Beast or any of these guys, is that the content, while profitable, is not what is actually generating most of the revenue for the company. So for us, the content does well. We love our audience and we love to serve them as best as we can. But if you want to buy our seeds and our raised beds, that's how you actually support the company.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What do you tell people that say, I can do everything myself and so forth and so forth? What have you learned?
I mean, I told myself that for a while. I think every young entrepreneur will say that. Afraid to hire, it's not going to be perfect, I can do it better. Actually, all those things might be true, and it still is a good idea to still do it, right? If I can hire someone who's 80% as good as me at something, but I'm not the one doing it anymore, then that's actually a valid hire. And so if you want to do it all yourself, you certainly can. You're just going to constrain yourself at a certain limit that you'll never be able to get past, because eventually we all run out of bandwidth.
So what was tough for you, that switch? What had to happen for you to be like, finally I can let go?
Man, in the early days it would have been 400 or 500 articles deep on the blog. I just couldn't write another one. And same with editing, right? I was never going to be a world-class video editor, so it was time to get one, and I've never looked back since.
Truth is, there are people out there that can do things better than you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the truth is, I almost want to say the best business builders don't do any one thing better than anyone else in the world, except for that exact skill of running that business. So they're not like specifically better at one particular skill set.
Yeah. Well, you guys check out upflip.com/courses, where you can discover a wide variety of courses taught by very accomplished people, such as Kevin. I think you'll greatly benefit. If you could read only 1 or 5 books in your entire entrepreneurial journey, what would those books be, and why?
There's a time. It's actually a little embarrassing. So I used to read books all the time. I probably read 200 of these types of books, like business books or development books or whatever. The one, maybe 2, that I would say had the biggest impact, and it's a cliche answer, absolutely, you're gonna know what I'm saying the second I say it, it's 4-Hour Workweek.
All right,
Absolutely, when that came out in 2007, I was in college playing poker for a living and realized, oh, actually, this is just a high-paying job. I don't actually have something sustainable here. So it kind of got me out of that mindset. So I started investing in other poker players and testing things out, started building websites. So it was like my first sort of big mind shift of like building a business, not just working
From
something.
that.
And then the second one, which is a little bit more esoteric, is Poor Charlie's Almanac. So that's Warren Buffett's partner, Charlie Munger, has a book that he didn't even want to get written, and it was it's like a compendium of his wisdom on mental models, ways to think about the world, sort of simplistic ways to kind of help guide your decision making. It is a tank of a book. It's out of print. It's like $110. Jeez. I got a copy of it, and it's just incredible.
All right.
It just teaches you basic principles for basically how the world works. So it was fantastic.
We'll make sure to check that out. If you guys can share with us the books that are making an impact in your life, just comment below. We'd love to read it. Comment and just bless others with it. What do you think about goal setting? You go to seminars, everybody talks about it, but not everybody really implements them in a day-to-day business planning and growth. What role did it play in Epic Garden's scaling?
For us, it was get to the next year and grow this much revenue. What do I need to do to hit those goals?
So was it on paper?
It was on paper, like a Google Doc or something like that. So like one year, let's say we made $75K in our second year in business. I want to triple that because I think I can grow faster than the traditional sort of double or 50% or something like that. Because we're young, we're growing fast. And so I go, what needs to happen for this to be true? I need to write this many more articles, or I need to write, this many more.
Work backwards.
You work backwards from it, and then eventually the goal gets big enough. Let's say the next year 500K, the next year 1 million, the next year 2 million. But I can't write that many articles. So something else has to change, right?
That's
so
true.
That's why we start getting into YouTube. We start getting into these other things, and eventually e-com, because I'm like, I can't get to the goals I want to get to unless I operate sort of a different business. I add something else new to the business. So goals-wise, these days, they are a lot more complex. We have them broken down by the quarter, by the team, by the individual owner on the team, because we're a bigger organization now. Back in the early days, it was like what do I want to make next year in the business, and what do I have to do to get there?
So as a one individual business per se, how much should I focus on goal setting and writing everything out? You know what I mean? Like 50-page business plan.
I think I've never written a business plan in my life.
Okay, yeah.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't, just means I haven't, and I'm doing all right.
Yep.
And I also think that over planning and under acting is a big mistake everyone makes early on. And so figure out a goal to sprint at, and then figure out the basics of what you need to do to get there, because you're probably going to be wrong.
Right.
And so you have to act to figure out how wrong you are and in which ways you're wrong, and then you shift from there. So high level goal, a few things you want to test, and then just run for it.
Share whatever you can, and that is revenue for Epic, right?
Yeah.
We talked about
Yeah.
kind of the big numbers. Where do you hope to be at the end of 23? Where do you see yourself getting to 24 and so on?
Yeah, I mean, I think the goal, especially after raising investment, is to build an $100 million a year or more gardening company.
Good for
We
you.
think the opportunity's there. It's sort of ripe for the taking, and we've proven that we can get there. I mean, we're 7-something million 2 years ago, targeting north of 30 this year. And so, you know, the stars look to be aligning. We have a lot of
That's
work to do.
incredible, yeah.
But it seems like that's the target.
But the market, I feel like, it still hasn't been tapped into,
No.
right?
No,
like
we're
gardening, everybody should be doing gardening.
I think so too.
Quite frankly, everybody.
Yeah. Trust me, I'm the biggest evangelist out there. I mean, the mission of our company is teach the world to grow. So we're trying to get into not only America but other markets.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. As we wrap up, what do you want to tell our audience, just from the bottom of your heart, advice, thoughts to inspire?
Yeah.
And just
I mean, here's what I'd say. I would be the person watching this video 5, 6, 7 years ago going, how the hell do I do what I've now done, right? And have more to do. And so I literally was the exact same person that's probably on the other side of the screen, wondering if I was built out for it, if I could do it, if I could do this. It's the same thing. I'm just the same guy. I just applied it and learned, and definitely there's some luck involved for sure. So yeah, that's what I'd leave everyone with, is if I can do it, you certainly can as well.
awesome. Well, Kevin, this has been a pleasure.
Hey, thanks man.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it.